Hi there, and welcome to my newest podcast. I think it's podcast 16. I've kind of lost track. I have had so much shifting when it comes to the podcast and the business. This will probably be my first podcast on a new platform under Embodied Sacred Union rather than Phoenix Rising. I feel like I've kind of outgrown the Phoenix Rising format. It's gotten much larger than my original vision from Phoenix Rising. And so, but I'm going to continue. I'm just going to keep all of these podcasts together in one place. And I am going to probably just record an intro to update the other ones with my new social media. So just to get that out of the way, if you want to follow my podcasts or if you want to stay up to date with the most recent things that I'm doing, you can follow me on Instagram at Mermaid Priestess 22, and you can follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/Mermaid Priestess. And the website is Phoenix Rising's website right now, which is Release Your Phoenix. And here in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be moving over to embodiedsacredunion.com. So you can kind of try both. I'll have a redirect set up on the Release Your Phoenix website before it disappears as well. So anyways, today I wanted to come on and share with you guys a little bit about my processes, but I don't want to share about them. I actually want to share the details of my process with you. So this morning I had a really powerful session. I hold space for myself every morning when I wake up. I guess if I have a morning ritual, then that would be my morning ritual, where before I even open my eyes, I just drop down into my body. And I'm still having some heart clearing from that session. But I always just drop down into my body before I even open my eyes, and I just hold space for some of the layers that have been coming up during that time. So sometimes it's something that came up from a dream. Sometimes it's something that has been kind of niggling at me for a few days that is sort of coming together. And I hold space for these things as I'm called to. And usually about every morning, I'll hold space for some little thing that's come up, some trigger, some little resistance that I'm feeling, and then there are certainly days where I don't do that. And so what I wanted to share with you today is my most recent kind of experience. And so usually what happens when I drop into these processes is there will be some thread of tension, unresolved tension that's made itself known to me. I'll hold space for it, drop in. There may or may not be an emotional release that happens with each one of those. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be clearing my voice a little through this because still processing. So there may or may not be a deep emotional release with them. Oftentimes it's just a release of that thread. And then sometimes I will have a really powerful kind of shift in perspective and understanding about the internal world too. This is how I embodied the understanding of the sacred union archetypes and the ways that they work between the masculine and feminine. This came from my own internal processes. And this morning I had another one of those sorts of things. And throughout the process of holding this space for myself, I was like, oh my gosh, please, I really hope I can remember this because I really want to share this process out to the world, to those of you who are interested in hearing it, to the ears that it makes it to. I trust that when I feel guided to share something, there's someone out there that it can help. And I know that sometimes this process of navigating the inner world can be really confusing. We don't really know what to expect. It's not something that we do that we really have anybody to model for us. It's not something that we do very consciously, or sometimes at all. And we're all, for the most part, to varying degrees, dissociated from what's happening in our inner realms. And so I just wanted to share with you the first kind of thing that I noticed around this particular set of circumstances was a few threads that were coming into my awareness, and I had no idea that these were connected. So one of those threads was a few dreams that I had over this last week or so, involved me calling in a divine masculine partner, a person who was embodied in his masculine energies, integrated in his feminine energies. And in my dream, I had connected to that partner, but there was some distance there, and I was feeling unsure. I was feeling a little bit of insecurity around it. And it has been historically something for me that in my dreams, I will often see reflected to me very clearly what my standing is with the masculine. And so I've learned to always use those as a thread to explore in myself. Another layer that had been coming up over the past few weeks was a layer of just feeling a little bit of, I guess you could say, like, incompetence. I'm in the middle of birthing. I guess it's not incompetence. It was a confidence that I didn't have, though. And you know, these threads that are coming through right now, that have come through in the past week, they're very minute threads. And so this second thread of confidence was really around my business and birthing out into the world right now. I have a new program that it's actually a graduated program where I just hold a private coaching space to guide others through this process. And it's a journey where we work with, first we work with embodiment, and then we work with the archetypes, and then we work with really finding your gifts, and it's over a period of time. And so as this entire thing is just my heart and soul expression that I am birthing out into the world. And there have been many layers that I've worked through in coming to this point. And so this was another little thread that I was feeling around actually being able to support myself financially with abundance, specifically from this thread of sharing my gifts. And there was a little bit of a lack of confidence there because I'm not quite in the space where all of my income is coming in abundantly from that source. And so one of the things that I have noticed about these threads when they're really tiny is how difficult it can be to hold space for them. And there's one other larger thread that is part of a larger thing that I'm also stepping into, a growth edge that was connected to this that I'll share in a second. But with these small threads, one of the things that I've noticed is that when you're just beginning to address these things, there can be such a damming of the flow of light from your core truth that, I mean, it's really easy to feel stuck, you feel constricted, you feel lost, and it's really easy to see this big thing that's holding you back that you really feel is, you know, damming the flow of your expression. And as you start to follow those threads, it's like each thread that you pull is kind of allowing some of these rocks to fall away. And, you know, as you pull one thread and a few rocks come out with it, some light begins to shine through. And then you pull another thread and some more rocks fall out with it. And then some more core truth starts to shine through. And as you do this, eventually you have enough of your core truth shining through that it feels so very true in your body, and you're really expressing from that place as a majority expression. What happens is when there's still some small threads left, like maybe a little rock down here, maybe a little one over here, most of your core truth expression is shining through. It feels very true in your body when you feel into it. But there are these little threads of resistance, these little thoughts or these little fears that you completely not only know up here and can argue are not true, but you really feel in your body how untrue those things are. And it can be really easy to ignore them and to just kind of try to shoo them away because they feel so insignificant compared to the truth, the larger truth in your body. But they will continue to magnetize situations to you to keep bringing you back, to bring your attention back to them. And so for me, it actually took having some fellow coaches to hold this space for me. And it took me recognizing where they were drawing me back to that thread when I was trying to go, yeah, but I know it doesn't, I mean, that doesn't even feel true in my body. And then they would draw me back and I'm like, oh, I see what's happening here is my masculine mind is actually leading this and saying, well, yeah, but I know that's not true. And I'm checking with my body and it doesn't feel true. But there's a small little thread here where it is true, however small, and it's asking for attention. And so that's kind of what I'm dealing with these two little pieces here. On a larger scale with relationship, I've been really dealing with coming to more surrender and sovereignty in my relationship with the masculine. And that, you know, this again, all of it is internal and it's often reflected in relationships. Most of my personal growth is, and there's so much alchemy to be experienced in relationship and dating. And so I always focus on the inner work because I am not in that sacred relationship space yet. I'm still working on calling that in. So I'm always focusing on the internal work and allowing the experiences that I'm having in the dating world to reflect to me where I'm ready for more opening, where I'm ready for more surrender, and where I really need to be making sure that I'm standing in my sovereignty. And so, and the other thing outside of birthing my business that I'm also working on, and a big growth edge for me right now, is really focusing on cultivating the healthy relationship dynamic between myself and my children. I was raised very authoritarian and I had a very strong masculine holding my own personal expression with my children. And it was really containing the feminine, really about controlling and containing the feminine. And so I have been journeying a lot with that. And I can feel that this year is going to be, you know, full of a lot of breakthroughs with that. It already has been over the past 5 to 6 months. It's been really beautiful. And one of the things that came to me most recently around that was being able to connect from the heart space, being able to receive people's emotions and feel them, being able to receive people energetically and emotionally. Because there were certain situations, and not often with my children, actually, it happened most notably recently with my own mom, where she had an emotion and I like blocked. I physically gave her a hug, but emotionally and energetically, I kind of blocked it. And I could feel that at the time. And so this was a couple of weeks ago. And then what I also started to notice was that as I've worked through layers of being able to stand in my own power and shine my light and allow my sensuality and sexuality to really flow through, and just allowing that feminine light and magic to really flow through and magnetize the attention of the masculine to me. And there have been a lot of layers for this for me to work through in the past, because if any of you have listened to my other podcasts, or maybe if you've read some of my blogs, I had an experience where when I was a child, I was molested by my father until I was 12. And I'm sure that if he ever listens to any of these, he'll have his own experience about that, which is completely fine. My experience is the one that I'm left living with, and it has had all of these repercussions around the masculine, feeling safe to express my sensuality, my sexuality, all of these different things that I've been, being safe to just even express myself or speak my thoughts, speak my feelings. So there have been so many layers that I've been working through for so long to come to the space that I'm in now of tender compassion for the masculine and really desiring to support the masculine and really understanding their perspective as well, and having empathy for that, and working, with my own masculine, feminine energies. And so, the most recent layer with that for me was recognizing, okay, well, now that I'm out and I'm magnetizing all of this attention, I go out often, and it's been really interesting. I go out often by myself, and it's been very interesting to see how working on this inner world has shifted the dynamic of the attention that I get from the masculine when I'm out. It's so amazing how much, and I could do a whole podcast on just the different things that have happened, the different experiences that I have just because of the energy that I have changed inside of me. But so now there's been this thing that I noticed where if there's somebody that I am not interested in, I will feel a wall go up. I'll feel this kind of, I don't want to receive that energy. And in my responses and reactions to them, it is not as defensive as it used to be, but it's been a journey for me to find the words to honor myself in my desire not to connect and also honor, the confidence that it takes and the courage that it takes for a man to even put himself out there that way, and to really be honoring of both spaces. And so what I found was that where I was in this process of having, of kind of finding some of those words, I was still really resisting being open and being receptive. And as a feminine dominant, the space that we most naturally flow in is receptivity and open surrender. And that's kind of what we're always working toward. But it's not that we're just open and surrendering to any and everyone, just completely vulnerable. Obviously we have our own inner masculine and our own sovereignty. And we do have those boundaries of self-honoring as well. We've got a fierce queen, tigress. For me, for some women, it feels like a wolf. Mine is definitely a lioness. Not a tigress, it's a lioness. That will protect those boundaries, but she doesn't have to come out with her claws right away. And so learning how to be serious and not laugh off when somebody is desiring, to connect in a way that I don't want to connect, to have a physical touch in a way that I don't want to have a physical touch, even if that's just with my hand, or when somebody asks for my phone number, even making sure that I understand that even my phone number has value. It's not just something that I hand out to just anybody who asks to avoid the conflict and then just block their number and not respond, right? Like there's this whole kind of dynamic of self-honoring and value. And so anyways, this is kind of the next layer of that for me. And so this morning, the first layer that I felt called to hold that space for was the one where I sort of felt a little almost collapsed and not super confident in my connection with a sovereign man. And so as I held space for that, what I do is I drop down into my body and I start to notice, I start to call forth that kind of feeling. And then I start to notice where I feel it in my body. And as I do that, because of my awareness of the archetypes, where they live in the body, my queen came forward. And as I held space for her, she felt very constricted, not constricted, she felt weak. And she felt her posture was like really kind of like small and like hunched over. And really it almost melted down into like this child, like this young queen that was just so unsure of herself. And as I held space for that, I started to explore all of the ways that showing up in this way have affected my life and are affecting my life. And so, all of these layers came up of, when I'm expressing in this way, when I'm holding this energy and expressing from this thread of truth in my body, there are layers of, it's energetic. When I feel small and I feel unsure, not only that is affecting my magnetism, it's affecting how I'm received, it's affecting how I'm viewed by others, but it also it feels powerless. It feels insignificant. And so as I held space for that and empathized with those feelings and with the recognized repercussions of that, I started to journey with, what is it that's holding me back? And as I started to journey with that, a really powerful thing happened where I felt my sovereign masculine draw my queen up to standing and put his finger, his hand under her chin to have her look him in the eye and ask her, what is holding you back? And this hit me really, really powerfully in that moment, because I recognized that this is what a sovereign embodied masculine does for his queen, for his partner. He makes sure that when she's playing small, he brings her, he stands her up, he supports her, and he asks her, what is holding you back? I'm here and I've got you. What is holding you back? And so that was really powerful for me, just to recognize that. And as I sat with this, what is holding me back? There was and these things, they go so quickly. So I'm going to have to kind of drop in again and see if I can remember. They really fade back into the nebulousness of the feminine consciousness so quickly. So that's part of the reason why I'm wanting to share this, just hours after I had the experience, because there will still be time that I'll be taking over the next several days to integrate and to really see how this, shifts my energy and my experiences from integrating this. But, this process itself, when we move through it, it disappears so quickly. So as I felt into, what was holding me back, another thread came in around that same time, reminding me about the business part of it. And I was like, yes, okay, let me finish this, and then we're going to move on to that one. So, and this is what happens. I'll be working with a thread, and then another one will go, hey, this is actually related. Don't forget about this one. And then I'll go, okay, we'll move over there next. Or sometimes I feel called to move into it right away. I follow my intuition. And so, and throughout this process, I was like, oh God, I hope I don't forget. I was really calling upon my soul to be like, help me to remember this, because I really want to share this process. Just kind of this in-depth, this is what it looks and feels like to dive into my inner world, and what it looks like when I explore these depths inside. So, as I held that space for my queen and asking her, what is holding you back? Oh. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, there was a fear that there was a fear that she wouldn't be received or chosen. And there was, I know there was another thread to it, and it's not coming to me now. And this might happen. And usually with my clients, I actually take notes about each thing that comes up and I send it back to them for them to review later, because there's usually some more little nuggets that we can pull out of it. But so as she stood there, one of the biggest things that actually helped in that moment to dispel those fears and helped her to stand in that was just knowing that my inner masculine was there, that my inner masculine saw her for who she was and loved her unconditionally and was going to support her to be her best and fullest self, regardless of anybody else. And so that really was, just feeling that was a really, really powerful shift. And so, yeah, she was able to stand, she was able to stand in that after holding these layers of fear. And she was able to really, really stand in that and really appreciate the masculine for being there to support her and really feel like she was ready to step into that. And I'm just going to pause it real quick because I don't know how long it's going to take for me to pull this layer together, but I just want to sit with it for a second because I know that there was a layer there that's kind of missing. So I'm going to come right back. Okay, I was able to reconnect to kind of the pathway there. Ooh, and I'm feeling really dropped in again and really connected to it. So I was actually drawn from that space of feeling his support to be able to stand there with him and really just feeling that intrinsic support from my own inner masculine. It actually moved then to the business. And it moved to, I could feel it, this shift as I held space for this feeling of, I'm not supporting myself with the money abundantly yet. And so I can't be confident. Like I can't be confident until I have this need met. So right there was an automatic for me, like, all right, there is a confidence level here that we are giving our power away to this other space. So let's sit with this. And automatically my consciousness shifted to my king. And so now, and immediately it just brought tears to my eyes because now my queen was standing there and holding space for the king who had just brought her with his beautiful support and brought her to her sovereignty again. And now she's holding space for him in a place where he's feeling, insecure and feeling not confident. And as I held space for that, and again, it's so interesting because it was such a little thread. It's more, the power in this was really more about, a lot of it was about the dynamic between the king and the queen. And so as I held space for that layer, there was this feeling of, I felt into where it was holding me back. I felt into where this tiny little thread was really creating some resistance, and I felt in my body where it was creating some resistance. And so I started to journey with my king in the ways that what it would look or feel like to, like, how does he desire to be expressing? And so I was able to conjure and really imagine, like, okay, this is how I really desire to feel. And it was connected still to like the money thing. And so I said, okay, well, what if we take money out of it? Then how do we feel as far as confidence? And there was this really beautiful recognition of, I'm doing this work and I am the absolute expert in this work. And there's nobody else that teaches it the way that I do. And so really just gathering that confidence and knowing that my deepest desire is to connect at a heart level with those that I'm working with. And I felt a little thread of tension, a little thread of resistance in my heart as I said that, as that became clear to me. And I thought, oh, yes, that other thing about connecting and receiving at the heart space. And I felt guided in that moment to take a little break with the king and the queen and just drop into my heart space and just really feel what I was feeling there. And I could feel this little thread of tension, it was like this little board of resistance that existed kind of at the surface of my heart, just under the left side, just under the left kind of rib space. And I felt into that layer of tension. And what came out from that was this not feeling safe to receive others' emotions. Like if I start to receive people's emotions, maybe everybody's emotions were going to come in. And so I journeyed with that a little bit and held space for that and was able to come to my core truth that I make the choice of who I want to connect with. And I desire deeply to connect more deeply with those people that I'm having a one-on-one connection with. And everybody else is outside of that bubble. And so even if that is some random man who comes to my table, I am choosing to connect with him at a certain level for a certain amount of time. And I want to be able to feel that flow of connection. And so, obviously when it's my mother or my children. And so what happened is I started to feel through all of these layers where this block, where this piece of armor was preventing something that I desired, a deeper level of emotion and a deeper level of sensitization and feeling in my body. And as I realized that, that is a choice, I get to use my discernment in that space, then I could feel it start to release. And then there was also, I could feel after that, there was kind of in the back of my heart space, in the back, kind of like lower area of my heart space, I could feel another, like, it was like a tension, like it didn't want to grow past that point. It didn't want to open past that point. And I could feel a desire for a release there, for a surrender there. And so as I felt into that, and I really just breathed with that, one of the things that came to me at some point in this process was it was for my king. First of all, I had recognized that my queen's desire was, she had this feeling of like insecurity. She wanted to be safe, and he was not feeling confident in providing. Like he felt like he needed to provide, and he felt like that was coming from a money space. And it's so funny that this existed as a little thread of truth within me, because that's one of my biggest things with men outside of me and that I've experienced, is them really feeling like their need to provide is material. It comes from money. And so they're always working so hard to chase the money. And for the feminine, especially for a Piscean, it's all about loving me emotionally and energetically. I mean, but that's a feminine thing. We want to be loved emotionally and energetically. And yeah, I have a flair for luxury. I love nice things, but none of that means anything to me without the real deep, that doesn't bring me anything. It's just icing on the cake. It's just fun. And so for my masculine to recognize this thread that he was holding, where he felt like he had to provide with money, and to realize, no, my gift and what I'm providing already, and that I'm so abundant in, is sharing emotionally. It's holding this space, and it's being able to receive and share of myself emotionally and energetically. That's where I'm providing. So that was a really, really, really big, beautiful breakthrough. And as I felt into that space, actually all of these different connections started kind of rolling through, where I would kind of experience, bringing my mother to me and having her feel this emotion that's bringing her to tears, and just going there with her, receiving her and going there with her and holding her in that space. And it's interesting because I do this naturally with my clients, and I do this naturally with my children. And so there are definitely places where sometimes we have resistance, but the resistance only exists in certain situations. And so, then I brought in, if there's a man who comes to my table who's drawn by my magnetism, and I'm not interested, or, I'm not interested for whatever reason. And it's amazing how, now that I had worked through this process and that little layer, the words of honoring came very easily, which was a big struggle for me before. And what came to me was, I appreciate your desire. And I said, I appreciate your desire, and that's not what I want right now. And so, and that just felt so good. I appreciate your desire to come sit at my table. That's not what I want right now. And that felt so clear and so honoring to both my desires and what I truly want and what they want. And, there's always, if somebody's more persistent, then, I have no problem in getting more honoring of the self, more deeply honoring. I've got an inner bitch that can come out if she has to, right? But it felt so good to have this, I appreciate your desire, and that's not what I want right now. Or for, I've had actually yesterday, I had several men asking for my phone number. Over the past couple of days, I had several men asking for my phone number, and I was navigating one of them. I was like, yes, I wouldn't mind giving my phone number to connect as friends. I think it would be a lot of fun to connect as friends with you. And that felt really good. And the ways that I was handling it, I said no to one person. I gave my phone number to another person that I was interested in, another person I was interested as friends. And this felt good, but there was something that wasn't quite flowing. And I could feel that there had been that layer of armor there where I wasn't quite connecting with my deepest core truth, my deepest honoring words, and my deepest core flow. And so that's what happens when we have a tiny, tiny thread of tension. Is it works and you're doing it, but it's not super flow. It's a little uncomfortable still, and it's a little awkward still. And so, I brought each one of these other people into, each of these other situations where, I would love to connect with this person, but not in the way that they're asking for me to. So either I appreciate it, but I actually don't want to connect with you, or I would love to connect with you, but not at the level that you're asking to. So instead, that's, I appreciate your desire, and I would really love to connect with you in this way instead. And so, just being able to navigate that was such a huge thing for me. And let's see. So The other thing that was really, really, really big, there was another kind of really big shift in understanding here was as I dropped into that heart space, and as I imagined, this receiving and this kind of sharing of these emotional and energetic spaces, a friend who was really dear to me came to my heart to hold space for what's happening in their situation. And they're in kind of a dark space right now. And I've had a desire to hold space for those layers of darkness. And I felt some resistance from the other side. And, what I was doing was my best to say, hey, I'm here to help. And I know that you've got this on your own, but I'm here to help, And what I realized in this, the space that I was in this morning is that actually, you know what? The resistance that I'm feeling is actually exactly where they need to be held. And so that was a huge thing for me, even in my practice, both with friends. And when it's with friends, it's a little bit different because in my practice, I'm just always, somebody is coming to me. I don't necessarily personally know them. And I'm just allowing their body to go. I'm just helping their body, guiding their body to go where it wants to, gently feeling into resistance. And I'm letting their body lead. When it's a friend, there's a whole nother dynamic that I've been feeling into because I'm not their coach. And I want to hold space for them, but I have tools that can help them. And so I've been really navigating this. And what I realized is that, if there's resistance there, there is resistance often from our masculine when we are looking at stepping into feeling more, when we're looking at stepping into the darkness, into the chaos, into the unknown, there's resistance. And sometimes we can get stuck at that level and never want to step in. And what we need then is not somebody pushing us and goading us. Sometimes we need a swift kick in the ass. Occasionally that's something that helps. But what I found to be most true most often for me is that there needs to be a layer of love and acceptance that is brought to that exact space of exactly where we stand on the precipice of recognizing how scary it really can be and how okay that is to just need to rest there for a little while, and how okay it is to feel lost in that darkness, and to sometimes maybe bring a little additional reminder that this darkness feels really scary and you hate being called back to it again and again and again. But that thing that keeps drawing you back is an unconditionally loving feminine that lives within you, that's drawing you into the darkness of a womb space of unconditional love. And so even though it seems really scary because it's stripping away all of these things, it really strips you so bare. But once you start to recognize what it is that's calling you in, you're being called in like a newborn baby to be held in a womb space of unconditional love so that you can come out transformed and stand in your sovereignty. And so, but the key is to stop feeling forced, to stop. The biggest problem that we have most often when we're in these deep, dark spaces is that we're forcing ourselves out of it. We're trying to force ourselves to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and to figure our shit out and to move forward, to just move forward, because we're moving from a masculine mind space that's all direction focused. I need to move forward. I need to get out of this space. I need to stop being a baby. I need to get my shit together and move forward. But what happens is you keep falling back into that space. And the reason is you can't have forward movement that is in alignment, that is going to continue to flow. There is no flow without the feminine. The feminine is the flow. So you're going to keep spinning your wheels or running up against these walls unless you interact with the feminine, unless you integrate the feminine. And so we have to have depth first. We have to dive deep first. And it can be really scary. And most of us don't have the support or the tools or have any idea not only how to do that, what it might look like, what it might feel like. And so that was part of the reason that I wanted to at least share these layers. And these layers were not particularly deep, dark ones. Maybe at another time, if that's something you're interested in, I can share some of the layers of my super deep, dark layers. But yeah, you know, this came through really, really clear for me at the end of this process, that the key is always to love the layers that come up exactly where they are, without saying, okay, we're doing this to get to the next layer. Because as soon as you do that, the feminine is going to close up. So in order to be able to move through these layers, we've got to be able to bring the unconditional love exactly where we're at, to the layer that's coming to us right now. So I hope that this helps you in some way, that this clarifies some of what this can look like, some of the ways that this works, the ways that it's kind of nebulous and non-linear, the way you kind of move through different things. But you know, at the end of my practice, I just felt so expanded through my heart space, in the front and in the back. I just felt it totally surrounding me, huge, beautiful. And then I sat up and I allowed myself to move with the energy that was moving through my body. And I really allowed myself to feel with my physical body into these new spaces that were created in my heart space. And it felt almost like I had a good workout, like in these new spaces that were opening up. It was a little raw, it was a little tender, it was a little sore. And I just allowed myself to move into those spaces as I felt guided to really just integrate and feel into the new layers of expansion that were created. And I just felt, you know, this beautiful, and actually I had a dream the night before. I had a dream that I was laying like my back to my man's stomach, laying on top of him, and his heart space was just moving into my feminine heart where she received him, and then it was just amplified out. And I really felt that again at the end of this session, just this really beautiful life force flowing through my heart space, and just allowed myself to move, and it just awakened so much Shakti in my body. So I just allowed myself to move with that and feel that for a while until it felt complete. And then I just laid on my back, just completely open, and I just felt all the places where the energy was just moving all the way from the palms of my feet and up my legs, and just my feminine crown at my yoni was just shining so brightly, and my whole body was just tingling with all of the energy flowing all the way out into my fingertips and my palms and all the way up into my head. And my heart felt so big and expansive, and my head crown chakra was just shining, and it just felt really, really amazing. And so I just allowed myself to sit in that space and just take it all in. And this is one of the things that's really important after we have a process like this, is to just allow our body to integrate that energy that has been shifted, and just allow space, create space for it to flow in the body. And then it's also really important to give yourself days or weeks afterwards where you start to recognize, because you're going to have shifts in your life, you're going to start seeing things shifting in your life. And when we're really out of alignment in something and we start peeling those layers, big stuff happens. Big stuff happens in your life to reflect that. And, you know, with these layers that I'm working at now, little things start happening. Like I start getting more attention. I start having more men come to me. I start feeling more flow in my business and start having more clients coming to me. And so, you know, now I'm in a space where as I release these things, the really positive stuff really starts rolling in. And so, yeah, I look forward to now, since you guys know about this process, I will definitely have to share with you guys any updates that I have over the coming weeks with new experiences, if I remember to do so, with new experiences that I have as a result of these shifts. So again, I hope this was helpful to you. I know it was a little bit long, but I hope that you gained something out of it. And again, if you are looking for support in these areas, if this is something that you want to be able to explore on your own, you can get some insight. I've created a free PDF. It's a guide to the archetypes. And this explores the masculine and feminine archetypes as well as the archetypes of sacred union. And it gives you a little bit of information about each of their roles in sacred union, gives you a little bit of information about some of their core wounds or belief systems. And yeah, it's kind of a magical PDF. I really love it. So you can find that on my website. If you just go to my main page, there's a download link there on my main page at releaseyourphoenix.com. And again, I'm going to have a redirect from that to Embodied Sacred Union. It's going to be happening soon. And if releaseyourphoenix.com isn't coming up by the time you hear this podcast, of course, just go over to embodiedsacredunion.com and it will be, the same setup. It'll be on the main page there as a download. And if you are feeling called to contact me and you want to see if we might be a good fit to work together, you can absolutely contact me. You can schedule a free Zoom date on my website as well. And yeah, I just look forward to just supporting you in whatever ways feel best for you. Take care.